Hello again. Welcome back, everyone. This is the second of Danny Dot's podcasts. I am the host, Danny Dot. First of all, I just want to say massive thank you to everyone who listened. I tell you, that first day that I posted it on Tuesday, was unbelievable. My phone died 4 times that day. It went from 100% battery to nothing. And it was just such an overwhelming day. I actually went to bed early, about 8:30 with a massive headache from smiling and laughing because the support and the messages and the momentum was just like, you just, if you ever want to do something and you're so nervous to just fly that kite, just do it is all I can sort of say, because who knows who's going to support you, what sort of messages. I think that was what was really overwhelming, was people that I hadn't heard from in so long, that I knew from different experiences I've had in my life, whether it be life achievements or whatever, come out of the woodwork and sing praises. And I was just sitting in my room like, oh my goodness, I haven't heard from that person in forever. And here they are listening to half an hour of me waffle on about my family and listen to my first podcast. And that just goes to show that you can go through life with absolutely the understanding that maybe you don't feel loved or anything, when in actual fact, who's actually seeing your life achievements and what you're doing is actually unbelievable. And I am just so grateful. It's just hit 200 listens, and I'm actually sitting here now that there's been 7 days or so since the first one. It's actually doing a bit of a statistic thing, and it's showing me where in the world the podcast is actually flinging itself, which is so great. I think it's really interesting that there's people in Austria who are listening. Hi. Hi from little old New Zealand. So what I wanted to touch on today was the topic of money and career. And I think it's a real, taboo sort of thing that we don't talk about debt. I'm here to tell you that as a 35-year-old, I'm a rascal when it comes to money. And I have such great stories from just living my best life, creating some hectic debt, and how to get out of it, or how did I get out of it anyway. So I did sort of touch on the topic with my mum and just ask if she wanted to have a discussion or what she thought I should talk about. And she was like, listen to your mother, which is something I probably never did when it comes to financial stuff. My mum, way back, as far as I can remember, had that age-old method where you used to use envelopes to, you would withdraw cash and you would put an envelope aside for car repayments or rent or groceries. And I'm like a lazy millennial, I suppose you could. Am I even a millennial? I feel like I'm like Generation Z. So I just never did that kind of stuff. I never withdrew cash. I've never been a cash baby. And I used to look at people that had money jars and think, wow, how do you even have coins? I mean, even at parking meters, I'm just not someone to be ready, and I'm more of a tap and go kind of chickie. You tap your card on the machine and you just get on with life. So I really struggled with how to make financial stuff work. And I will take it back as far as I can sort of think my first credit card. And that was kind of circa, I'm going to say 18, 19 years old. Gosh, here comes some real life stories. I went to Wellington with a guy that I fancied, and we drove up and we stayed just up in Kapiti in this beautiful location. And a friend of his was selling a Nissan Terrano truck with a impeccable sound system. And he says to me, I will sell it to you for $5,000, Danny. If you want it, you can have it. I hadn't had a driver's license at this stage. I hadn't really been behind the wheel of a car. I mean, we'd done a bit of bush bashing in a couple of hunker pieces of crap cars in my childhood, but nothing serious. So I thought about it and I was like, I'm almost of age to actually, own a vehicle and actually take this seriously, not just use my driver's license as a form of ID to get into clubs, but I should march down to the local bank and get a credit card. I didn't tell Mum. I brought the car and it was $5,000 and I didn't know how to do this, so I withdrew the $5,000 cash off a credit card. I think it contributes like compound interest or does something weird when you withdraw cash off a credit card. And I can tell you now, my wages were going on the credit card. I was not gaining any momentum with paying this truck off. But I'll let you in on a secret. I drove the car from Kapiti down to Wellington, got the Blue Ridge ferry down to Picton, and then went to drive it to Queenstown, where I lived at the time. We were I was barely into my trip, and I was thinking I was doing so well driving this Nissan Tirana with this amazing sound system, just living my best life. Barely 10, 15 minutes into my drive, I took a corner too fast and I hit a lamppost. It wasn't too bad because there was a ditch and I flung into the ditch, hit the lamppost. A guy comes around the corner, sees what's happened, and he's like, just stay there, I'll call the council. Are you okay? And I was like, I'm okay, but I don't think that the lamppost is damaged. It's just me. I'm shaken. And then I just, had a bit of a yarn to this guy, and he was like, well, I just think your chassis is a bit off, and that's that wheel alignment of your car. And I thought, oh, yeah, cool. Well, I've got to drive to Queenstown, so I've got to get on with it. And he was like, yep, cool. I don't think that the lamppost is damaged, just your ego, the truck. So anyway, I left and I never heard anything of it. So I drove down to Queenstown. I ran out of fuel in Haast. I didn't know where full beams were on the truck, so I was driving in dim light at 2 a.m. I rang Mum and I was like, I've run out of fuel. I'm in Haast, which is still maybe 2 hours north of Queenstown. Can you come and help me? And I had no money. I withdrew off a credit card. Life was crackers. So I got it back to Queenstown and I think we sold the truck for salvage of about $200. And that was a bad life choice. And I get that. That's fine. We're moving on. Then came the personal loans, the travel. I'm not one for saving. I literally would tick up some debt and just get on a plane. I never had any sort of savings to gain any momentum to have spending money. So I would say the whole of my 20s, I had a personal loan, which was just exactly that. I would go into the bank, tick up some more debt, go on a holiday, pay that off. And it was just like a revolving door of continual payments to the bank. When I was in Australia for 5 years, I was living on the bones of my ass. I had no financial backup. I was just, eating out. I'd already been in Sydney for 1.5 years when I went to Bali with my mum and my brother. Came back, flew from Sydney to Queenstown, spent 48 hours in Queenstown, jumped a plane back to Sydney, decided this is it, I'm done with Sydney, hired a Suzuki Swift, chucked my whole life in this car and drove up to start a life in Brisbane. And at that stage, I was like, okay, so if I'm going to Brisbane, I've got to do this properly. I've got to actually buy a car. I've got to get an apartment, start being mature. So I found a car, went back to the bank, started this terrible debt cycle in Australia in 2017, I'd say. So between a car, a couple of trips to Vegas, a couple of trips to Bali, and just general spending money, in 2019, I left Australia $30,000 in debt. And I was like, holy shit, how did this happen? It got to the point where I actually sat down with a very good banker friend of mine and I was like, something's got to change. And she basically said to me, like, if you're living with beyond your means, which is clearly what I'm doing and my bank account shows it, then you could apply for something where, I don't know, I can't even remember, like don't quote me on this. This is just something that they do in Australia, where they actually like come to the party and start sorting out your finances for you. It's not like they take control of your bank account, but they just see that you don't have the money to like pay your debts off. So this company went to my 5 credit cards, the bank for the personal loan, and basically said, we need to come to an agreement on her debt. Can you do like a installment arrangement where you don't have any interest? We just make this debt the money only, not the interest. And all of a sudden, that $30,000 went to 15. I was locked in at $100 a week for 3 years to pay this off. And I thought, okay, that's cool. I can do this. I moved home in 2019 in November, and I thought, okay, I've come back to a pathetic wage. I don't know how I can do this. The pandemic happens, and all of a sudden I'm able to withdraw my super, which at my last job in Australia, I always went up to my manager and I always said, don't pay my super, give me the cash. I'm never going to retire in Australia. Why do I need to have a superannuation? All of a sudden, in 2020, I could withdraw that super. So I did. In 2 installments of $10,000, I managed to pay off that $15,000 debt and buy a car, which is now on my driveway, which we call my supercar. And now, at 35 years old, I don't have any debt. I've actually, right this very second, have no afterpays, which is something like my afterpay account used to look like what we would call the dole in New Zealand. $400 a fortnight was going on afterpay, and now I don't have that. So I'm going to start saving money again, and I feel really like great about it because I've never stopped and thought about the future. And I think when you hit your 30s, you just kind of, something goes click and you think, wow, I need to start gaining a bit of understanding about where my money is going and how I can better do this. And I think that they should be teaching that in school, because why someone would give someone like myself a personal loan or, you know, let me tick up debt the way that I had in my 20s. I kind of have no regrets. I had a lot of fun. I have a lot of memories, but it didn't teach me anything. It just taught me to be reckless and I'll deal with it later, which is not the mentality to have. So now we're starting 2023. We're 45 days into the new year. I've had no deliveries, no afterpays. I've brought nothing. And I'm starting to save for a batch or a section, something to call my own from nothing. Like, I'm starting afresh and I'm super excited because remember back in, I couldn't even tell you, sometime in 2018 maybe, I picked up the book, The Barefoot Investor, and it was great. It sort of taught me how to negotiate, you know, financial things and start buckets of money and all these different ways of saving better. I still didn't earn enough to save anything. So now I'm going to start implementing what I can to make my money maybe just go a little bit further and just, you know, start something for my future. It's scary to think that, like, at 35, I've got no debt, but I also don't have much saving. Like, I've got savings, but, I mean, there's people that have done this way better than me. And Yeah, I mean, I've dabbled in a few things like stocks and crypto and share market and all that kind of stuff, but nothing's really paid off, so it's not really my thing. But we're going to give it a shot. And if anyone has any ideas as to like, how I could do this better, like what works for you, I've been doing a budget, and quite frankly, it's just pen to paper. It's not even anything on a website or a Excel spreadsheet. I'm just forecasting where my finances are going and trying to stick within that. But also, like, I'm barely drinking this year compared to last year and my past. So I think that there'll be a lot of extra money going into that sort of savings thing as well, because let's face it, when you've had a couple of drinks, you buy a couple of shots, half the time it's not even the night that you partied, it's the actual hangover that costs more, because we all need fried food after a night out. Am I wrong? No, we shouldn't be doing that. That's not naughty. So yeah, when it comes to money, I definitely have a history. I'm probably the, don't do what Danny do method. But that's okay. That's okay. It made me who I am. And especially like I've been under financial stress. I've, struggled to make ends meet, but it wasn't because I have, a reckless partner or kids or anything crazy like that. It was because I had lots of fun. And that was the main outcome, was Danny Dot had fun. So, that was just sort of something I wanted to touch on, just to give you a bit of an understanding as to how I've sort of navigated money and debt, and to not be afraid. If you, want to reach out or whatever, we can sort of elaborate more on that sort of topic. It's one that I definitely take to heart. I feel for everyone out there that's sort of, especially right now when inflation's just terrible and we all are trying to make that extra step in our lives where we can, get something for our future. And right now, a carton of eggs, A, can you even find eggs on the shelf? That's one thing, because I love eggs. But B, since when are avocados cheaper than eggs? Because remember that in 2019, 2020, when they used to say that, you couldn't afford avocado on toast because if you wanted to put a deposit on a house, that's what you shouldn't be eating? I always ate it. And now I've got more avocados on the kitchen bench than I do have eggs in the bloody cupboard. So, yeah, I feel for everyone, and at least we can all be in this together. So it's okay. The other thing is my career choices. I had a few questions about what I actually do for work. I have my hands in a lot of pies. No, I am a debt collector. I sit at my house in Cromwell in a Batman onesie, and I collect money off people who have been in motor vehicle accidents and may not be able to pay it back, and I sort out arrangements. The way that I see it and the way that I pride myself on this whole thing is, I think when someone's been in an accident, the kindness and the empathy of someone who won't make it as scary as maybe someone who isn't based in New Zealand talking to them on the phone, then that helps. And I'm such a kind, caring character. I've had such great success with being a debt collector because I am a fun person that will, make them feel safe and happy, and not like you're going to be stuck on eating noodles for the rest of your life just to pay back a car crash debt, because that's not fair on anyone. And I kind of feel like in my, I don't even know, is it even like 2 years of doing this in New Zealand yet? I've just had such fun with it. And I still to this day get emails from people that have finished paying their debt and just saying that, when they had that accident and they thought the world was falling down, they love just having a yarn with me and hearing that it's okay. Go put your feet up, have a gumboot cup of tea. The ones that you can stand your teaspoon up in because it's so loaded with sugar, just to calm the nerves. I am a sweetheart of a debt collector, and I will be there for you. It's not where I was before. If we take it right back as far as I want to go, I've done everything. No, I haven't. I lie. I'm quite particular when it comes to what I do for work. I have tried to make coffee. I've been a barista at Gloria Jean's, one that was on Lichfield Street in Christchurch pre-earthquake, on the corner of Oxford Terrace. It's a one-way street, so the Christchurch police used to come past. That was a whirlwind of a job because I love a man in uniform, so if I was a little bit naughty, I would dock down 20% off a coffee or whatever. Maybe throw in a free Tim Tam. No. But yeah, look, I broke my wrist, and that kind of ruined my career in coffee because I couldn't tamp the stupid thing with the beans in it. So that job went out the window. That led me to move back to Queenstown, and I was actually on ACC for a better part of 2 years with rehabilitation for my broken left wrist, with screws and a fork in it. So it kind of led me to what do I want to do next? And I tell you, once you've been on ACC, which is New Zealand's version of like an accident relief where they come to your aid and helping you get back into the workforce when you've had an accident. So I kind of got a little bit complacent and pretty lazy, and I was like, I don't want to go back to work. So where my next job, they actually started trying to get me into housekeeping. And yeah, Queenstown is made up of so many hotels that housekeeping was just such a vibe. But I take my hat off to the people that do this for work. It's so physical, like making beds and cleaning out fridges and just all the housework stuff you do in your own house. Like, oh, I didn't last long. So I was actually applying for jobs that I saw myself in more of a professional sense, like not sneakers and track pants to, housekeep, but more I wanted to be in a corporate sort of professional environment. Wow. The job that I got and the shock of it all made me second guess myself there for many, many, many months. I started work at Vodafone, and that, I mean, there used to be 2 stores in Queenstown. We used to share staff between the 2. It was kind of like the best and worst 5 years of my life. The parties were just so much fun. I have never drunk as much Heineken as I did when I worked for Vodafone, Queenstown. But, it was way before smartphones existed. And we were on the cusp of the first iPhone being launched. And I just couldn't wrap my head around what was actually, launching. I never took phones seriously. And my first day on the job, I wore beige boots with like black pants, and my manager at the time was mortified because he was such a professional. I tried to sell one of those Vodem internet dongle things that go on the side of your computer to do the internet. I couldn't explain what this thing was, so I gapped it out of the store and hid in the toilets for an hour. To this day, I'm just like, you idiot. I mean, I can sell a pineapple to a fruitarian, so the fact that I couldn't explain a dongle, what are they even called anymore? It's just the funniest thing. And so, look, it was just such a scary thing that, I was all of a sudden on a salary and I got commission. And the customers and the stories and the contracts, like professional contracts, I just never knew how to like draw up a contract. And I had this beautiful superstar of a consultant that me and her used to fight for the best numbers of the month. And, we just had so much competition. It was stressful. So once I sort of saw the end of telecommunications, I was like, yeah, no, I'm out of here. I'm not going to do this anymore. I want to go and learn other things. I actually went to Sydney. My mum lived in Mackay at the time, and she was just like, we're moving to Sydney. And I thought, well, I'm going to go live in a city. So I started the 6-week job interview process for Optus, which is another telecommunications company. And I actually flung out like 200 CVs. I didn't mean to go back into telecommunications. Quite frankly, it wasn't for me. I was like, I'm better than this. I can do better. But working for Optus in Sydney was such a ride. I ended up being the 2IC, like the second in charge at the most amazing George Street store. And I had this hysterically funny Russian boss who he taught me so many things. Like, I seriously lived in a bubble in Queenstown. I had no idea about culture and everything. And I just thought Christmas for me was Christmas for everyone. Not with the Russian boss. Christmas Day for us is not Christmas Day for him. And I think that I definitely remember all the like anniversaries and big events that, you know, we thought that the Southern Hemisphere celebrated. Well, it's not the same for someone from the Northern Hemisphere. So I was kind of sad to see the end of that store. It was just such a fun environment. I actually won tickets to an intimate performance with Justin Bieber through working for that company. And it was so special. Like, I just laugh at all the weird stuff that we got past customers. And, you know, there was people that were fighting with you. And the funny thing is Optus, that store alone, I think there was 19 consultants. I was the only Kiwi and there was one Australian in Australia working in that store. Everyone else was from everywhere in the world. And I was just like, I've come to Australia to work with my cousins, like my Aussie bros. No, it's just wild. Sydney is such an adventure. I personally would never go back or like live there. It's too much of a rat race for me. Like, it's too fast paced and I'm so slow these days, it's ridiculous. So when I decided I was going up to Brisbane after I'd been, 48 hours in Queenstown and thought I'd drive a Suzuki Swift up to Brizzy, I did get a transfer and I hated that store. I hated it with a passion. And I actually caught the area manager embezzling, so there was that. And I'm a pretty good judge of character, so I saw that coming a mile away. Gapped it out of old Optus after that sort of incident and got a job working in insurance. And like, that was so interesting, but not me. I was hired based on my character and who I knew, not anything experience-wise, because let's be honest, I don't have any experience in insurance. I never even knew I didn't know what my job was for the first year. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Mostly because when I first started, I had to do this weird project and I was like, I hate reading like documents and stuff like that. And I just thought, this is the end of me. So I gave it my all. I was there for 3 years. And the day that I got a bonus was the day I handed my resignation in and was like, I got my bonus. I don't need this job. I'm gapping it back to New Zealand. What I learned in those 3 years was more like to be kind with myself and patience, because I got absolutely wrung out. Like, I felt like I needed to fight for myself to stay in that job. Like, and as a Kiwi working in another country, you always think that if you don't have a job or you don't have a wage or you don't have support, that you have to go home to New Zealand. Not only did my best mate work there and I wanted to make a good impression, I wasn't, because I was like not understanding the job and didn't have any support like from, my team leaders or anything. Like, I had a really bad run for team leaders. But then like the people that tried to scream and shout and get me heard that I was struggling just couldn't. No one had a voice. It was the weirdest environment. I wasn't a debt collector. I was just someone that would fight for car accidents and stuff like that. But it was such a strange job to explain. I didn't really explain it very well. And so I just sort of like decided to turf it in, because my time in Australia and that insurance job was just coming to an end, and I just thought, this is making me really unhappy. I just want to go and do something else that makes me happy. So I applied for a job at Queenstown Airport as an operations person. And like I love aeroplanes. So yes, this was a good job for me. No, it was bad because I couldn't trust myself around an airplane. That sounds horrible, and I regret to say that. But it wasn't like, there's just so many things with aviation that you have to be so conscious about. And when it comes to like me being professional, when it comes to like famous people getting off airplanes and private jets, and being like able to, you know, be airside and see planes, I was a menace, and I feel sorry for everyone that worked there. The people that were, you know, part of my little tight-knit team was so fun. Like, they were all part of a recruitment agency. No one was on a permanent contract. Everyone was just there with their headsets on, doing 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, making sure customers of Queenstown were super looked after. And then there was me, who would just, you know, get in fights with aviation security, fight with the customers who would leave their bags just randomly on the side of a wall and think it was okay. Like, oh, yeah. I only lasted 6 months because the pandemic happened and the airport shut. But that was like something, it's hard. I think it's quite a political job. Like the airport politics are quite interesting. At the time, I got along with the CEO really well, but I always get along with CEOs pretty well for some reason. But he was quite a special character, and he definitely was more fun than what he was made out to be. And I don't feel shame in saying that. He was a sweetheart. Apparently there's even like a lady who lives underneath the Queenstown runway, like not under the ground, but under the flight path. And once a fortnight or a month, the CEO used to go around with a bouquet of flowers and a box of cookies, just to say, like, you know, thanks for your patience with how loud the airlines are, kind of like that sort of sweetness. And he didn't have to do that. And I just thought, wow, this guy's really something. Like, he's thoughtful. But, well, he was short-lived. I think they've changed CEOs now, and that's all for them. Good on you guys. But if I was offered a job back there, it's kind of something that I would consider because of my social side, but my social side would get me into trouble. So yeah, but that's fine. And then I probably took 6 weeks off after I was made let go from the airport from the COVID to get my job back in what I'm doing now, debt collecting. And you know, do I see this as a forever thing? No. I've got like heaps of ideas of what I want to do, and to think that as a child I actually wanted to be a marine biologist is nothing near what I've done in my whole life. So I'm sitting here like, you know, there should be more careers conventions and things, or it's such a hard path to decide what you want to be and what you're good at. And even the people that study for years on end still don't end up doing the job that they want to do, and most likely like they might fall off the professional scene and just pack bags at a Countdown supermarket. It's something that, you know, I don't want anyone to look back on when they're 50 and say, shit, I didn't do that right, like I should have done this job instead. Or, you know, and even my mum, she's like, oh, you know, been doing childcare forever and a day, wants to do something else just as an interest, but doesn't know. And I sort of sit there and do quizzes with her, and I'm like, damn it, the stupid quiz still reverted back to you being in childcare. It's her nature. It's something she should do. I'm a people person. I love talking. I love, you know, supporting people. I'm pretty big on customer service. I've got a really strong work ethic. Geez, listen to me. I sound like I'm selling myself for a job. But at the same time, like, I work in my house. I have a really great setup, and I just sort of think anything else is kind of hard. I sometimes do stints at the local nightclub as a bartender, and even then I get exhausted and think, oh, how do people do this professionally forever and a day? So, yeah, basically what I just sort of want to sum up here is that whatever you choose to do, it's not forever. You know, you may take a lot of time to actually train and be professional in a sense, but don't feel like you're always locked in. And one of those massive things here is like, people hate quitting. People hate resigning. They hate letting people down. You know, even calling in sick is a letdown. You got to do what makes you happy. And, you know, I am not a podcaster, professional, an influencer. I am just Danny Dot, who's here to make people smile remotely, sitting in Cromwell. But at the same time, like, I'm always here for a chat. And I too don't know what I'm going to do with my future. I'm just sort of paving my own way every single day into what I might be interested in. And right now, podcasting is an interest of mine, and I see it, you know, it makes me smile, and I'm smiling as I say that. So, and don't ever hesitate to think you're better than what you're doing at the moment. You know, bring up that recruitment site, apply on seek.co.nz. Just put yourself out there, and you absolutely never know what could end up being something that you truly love. And if you ever think that what you're doing right now is not good enough, just think that someone who you might work with or your manager really appreciates what you do if you're feeling like you don't contribute or you're done with the whole thing. It's not in your head. You probably just need to have some appreciation. And if you're not getting it, or you want to earn more money, or you want to learn a new skill, apply, get out there, see the world. Who cares? It's just one of those things. Anyway, look at this. We're at 37 minutes. I'm already 7 minutes more than my last podcast. Proud of me. So as a recap, I just wanted to, look back on the fact that I'm absolutely gobsmacked at the friends and family responses, and even the international people in Austria that are listening to my podcast. Expectations for the future casts. Well, I hope that my confidence only grows with this, and I hope that the people that come on the podcast just can sort of help drive it and showing me what I can and can't contribute. My auntie, who's absolutely beautiful, she was like, keep it classy, Danny. And I was thinking, what? Do I sound bogan? But I also got a question a few times that I had a kind of an interesting twang. And I think that comes from being born in England. Yes, I said it. And having 5 years in Australia under my belt, that I've sort of picked up a weird kind of accent, but it is what it is. So the next topic that I think we should do, I'm actually going to get a friend to help me with in March. And I think we should be talking about friendships. And I think it's going to be quite interesting because, my mind is already like blowing up with what we can discuss about friendships. And friendships are so important. I just think that let's have a chat. Let's have a chat, get it off our chest and talk about friendships. And I'll bring a friend on the pod, one that's actually approached me and said, I want to be on the pod. Well, come on. Anyway, let me know what you think of this podcast. This is Danny Dot talking about money, careers, debts, and everything else. And we'll see you again in the not too distant future. Signing off.